Hi everyone, Kate Crane here. Today I'm going to be making some really tiny cute embellishments for cards, ATCs. You can use them on your journal pages. Now I'm using shrink film. So here, this is by Grafix. Here I've got matte film, super sanded. I've got clear, transparent, and also some white. So I'm going to be using different plastics to show you some different effects. It really is a fun process. It's quite magical. We can shrink things from this right down to this. Here, this is a palette stamp that I've used to make these kind of cute dangly earrings. This colour wheel here gives you a really good indication of just how much you can shrink it down. I'm starting with a piece of the matte film, and I've got this Hamsa stamp, and I'm going to be using Stazon. Stazon is a solvent-based ink pad, so it will dry well. Not all ink pads will dry well on this kind of surface, so it's better to choose a solvent ink pad. And with this one, I'm going to cut it into a tile shape. So you can see I've just cut around that to make a rectangular shape. Now I'm moving on to the completely clear, and I've got a slightly bigger Hamsa stamp. And sometimes on this very smooth surface, the stamp can skid a little bit, so just be very firm. And this time I'm going to cut around and follow the shape of my stamp design. So now I have one as a tile, one where I've cut around the shape and followed the shape of the design. And now I'm going to use, this is the super sanded. One side is very sanded, you can probably see that, and the other side is really super smooth. For my projects, I'm going to leave these two uncoloured, and then I'm going to colour this one before I shrink it. So anything that you want to add to your design, so any colour or anything like a hole, there's a little hole in these so I can hang them off an earring for instance, then you need to do that before you shrink it. And to add colour, you can try out different things, different mediums. On here, to make this little colour palette here, I used Ranger scribble sticks and literally just scribbled them on because I wanted that kind of look. On this one, I'm going to use my alcohol markers. These are Copics. Now the thing about these is the alcohol in the ink inside the pen will remove the design that you stamped. Let me just show you what happens. It literally wipes it out and takes away the design. So what I'm going to do with this colour wheel is I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to colour the reverse. Therefore, I'm not disturbing the ink that I've stamped. One thing to remember as well, when you shrink the plastic down, it not only goes from big to small, it goes to very intense. So the colour will get much more intense. So it's best to start fairly light so that as you shrink it, it will go to a nice bright colour. So there's different ways of shrinking. You basically need a heat source. So you can just use like your regular heat gun, or you can pop them in the oven. Now I tend to use a heat gun because I'm lazy and I can literally do it where I'm sitting. But if you're doing something like this, for instance, with young children, then it's a good idea and it's safer to pop them in the oven. What will happen as they heat, this is with the heat gun and the oven, they will start to curl. Even in the oven, they will naturally uncurl themselves, so just keep going. Things to have ready before you start shrinking, something that you can just hold, something sort of heat proof that you can hold so that the heat gun doesn't blow it away. And as soon as it's finished shrinking, you want something that you can just pop on top to flatten it down. So I'm just using my stamping block. And you can turn it over as well. And just watch, it will be hot. And then straight away, flatten it down. And there I have my very flat miniature colour wheel. Now it's also worth mentioning that you need to be working, if you're using a heat gun, make sure you're working on a proper heat-proof mat. And just to show you there, you really can see how much that shrinks down. And this is the kind of thing that I build up. You can see lots of offcuts and things here. A big collection of these, and that's what I use for my backgrounds. Something else that I like to do just to help build my little collage bits for putting my shrink plastic on is, I've got this a scrap of old ledger paper here, or you could use like an old dictionary page, sheet music, anything like that. I've got my stencil, it's already messy, so that's fine. We'll make it even more messy. And I've just got some black acrylic paint. First of all, I'm going to use my colour wheel to make a greetings card. Now the thing about shrink plastic is it goes so small, it could quite easily get lost on your project. So the way to get round that, one of the ways you can get round that, is to layer it up and keep going with the layers. And I'm going to layer that over the top there. But then I'm going to keep going, repeating those layers. So just another white piece of card, then another bit of print, and then that will go on the top there. But after this larger square, I'm going to put those bits across there. It just breaks it up a little bit, adds a bit of interest. I'm going to put those on there, then my next larger square, then my smaller square, and then eventually my colour wheel. But I'm also going to do a little bit of stitching. Stitching is always optional. I always like the look of it. I like the kind of dangling threads, and I'm going to do that before I stick those together. And to finish this one off, I'm going to add some glitter and also some white Posca pen marks. To piece this card together, I'm going to use the shaped Hamsa, the one that I cut around the edge of the design. I've got this here now. This is from a gel print. Quite often you do a mop-up print just to clean the plate, and they don't look very exciting, but they often have less pattern, so it's nice for layering something on the top. And I'm going to team that with part of the print that I showed you earlier, because this will be a nice background one with plenty of colour. And I've got some scraps of Hessian, or Burlap sometimes called, as well as bits of ledger paper and a bit of the stenciled ledger paper. And I'm just going to work in the same way, building around a small tile, but layering it and layering it and layering it to build up something a bit bigger. I'm going to start with this layer of Hessian, and then there is my print. Now And by adding this piece of ledger paper or something similar, something light coloured, it just breaks up the layers a little bit. There's a strip of torn stenciled ledger paper, another bit of print, another bit of Hessian, burlap you might call it, and there's my kind of pick-up print, because that's got a nice empty space for my shrink plastic. And I've got a quote here as well, which I'm going to add. But of course, before I stick that down, I'm going to stick those layers together and stitch again. And of course I've done that as a greetings card, but I think that would work equally well in a little frame with a nice kind of cream border around, just as an option. I'm going to do my last little tile as an ATC. So an ATC measures 2.5 by 3.5 inches and is traditionally a piece of art that you trade, an artist trading card. When I'm putting these together, what I'll do is get out my prints and just start playing about with the layers. So again, I want something fairly nice and quiet to put my tile onto, but then that can go against something a bit brighter, and then building up the layers, maybe something a bit quieter. Here's another kind of mop-up print. It's got a few little nice bits in it as well. And then that can go onto something much more busy for my base layer. So I'm going to stick those in place and then stitch around. It's much easier, by the way, to stitch something which is already stuck down, and then I'll be ready to trade. You can see how I've stitched around there now. Now the important thing with ATCs is that you sign and put the details on the back. So I'm going to add a little bit of a print on the back there just to tidy it up a little bit, and then my shrink plastic tile and my quote. And there we have 3 projects using the Grafix Shrink Film. It is so much fun, it's a magical process, and it makes for such cute embellishments. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed playing along.